Yes.
I just organized these things. Okay, so just a reminder to silence your phones. We're coming on 1 minute. I'll do an intro thanking everybody, and then I'll introduce you, Kim, and you can mention what I did not mention.
Yep.
And then start it. Is that good? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me on the mic? Should I hold it up? Okay. Yep. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kelsey Doom. I'm the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce President and CEO. We are here in this crazy time in our world with a very important event that we wanted to host regardless of our circumstances, and that is our candidate forum for City Council and School Board. And so what we are going to be doing is we have the candidates here. We're all practicing social distancing, but we're going to ask that our questions come in virtually instead of the public being present with us. So there's a few ways that you can ask your questions. We can text my cell phone at 605-481-2493. You can comment on this live feed. We have a volunteer at home checking Facebook and emailing them to us. You can email us at Kelsey, K-E-L-S-E-Y, at brookingschamber.org, or you can Facebook message the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. So a few different ways for you to ask questions for our candidates. This will last an hour. We will shut down this Facebook Live, get everybody set up for the next forum, which is the school board. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Tim Reed, our moderator.
Good morning and welcome to our candidates and to everybody that's watching and listening, whether it be on the public access government TV or on Facebook. I'd like to thank Kelsey and the Chamber for working hard to put this event together. And what we're having here for our first hour from 8 to 9 is our City Council Candidate Forum. It's a little different how we're doing it than normal. Just make sure that we are doing the social distancing that's been recommended by the CDC. We have 10 or less people in the room here. You can see that the candidates are very spread out. We're usually not spread out quite so much to keep social distancing. And of course, we really made sure that we had good hygiene practices by cleaning up the area, and we'll do that in between our forums also. As Kelsey said, there's several ways to send in questions. There's a Facebook Live feed that many of you are watching on, and you can comment right there. You can do the Facebook messaging to the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. You can also text 605-481-2493 or email Kelsey at brookingschamber.org. So I'd like to, one thing I should note, the current plan for the election is April 14th. There is legislation. I serve as your District 7 House of Representatives, and there is a bill in front of us that would move that election to sometime in June. And so we'll see what happens. We're meeting on Monday to discuss that bill. So although right now the election is on April 14th, it could be moved in the future. I would suggest people take a look at how you can do mail-in ballots, or we don't want a big rush at any time, but there will be the ability to vote here at the county city building when absentee balloting does open up. So I'd like to introduce our city council candidates. We have 2 seats open, and we have 3 people that are running. The people that are running are Joey Collins, Cassie Juba, and Ope Niemeyer. So what we'll do for our forum is we'll have a 3-minute introduction by each of the candidates, and then there'll be 2 minutes to answer each question that we have, and then we'll take time out at the very end to have closing comments by each of the council candidates. So we will start with Ms. Juba, and she has a time for a 3-minute introduction.
Thank you. I am Cassie Juba, and I am hoping to serve as your neighbor on the Brookings City Council. Right now, more than ever, we need a strong council that is committed to the needs of this community and connected to the needs of this community. If elected, I want to commit myself to affordable and workforce housing action, ensure the safe passage of Brookings' growth and strategic plans that will support the community and local businesses, and bring brainpower together to advance policy, which we will desperately need in the coming months. I've already spent time poring over documents, articles, and books, and spending as much time in person before this crisis and now over video with constituents and community leaders to learn about their perspectives and the needs of our community. Right now, I think this city needs a fresh, new voice that is committed and dedicated to understanding the needs that we will have in the coming months. I love this city, and I know that I'm ready to get to work for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Juba. And now we'll go to Mr. Niemeyer.
Good morning. My name is Ope Niemeyer. I have been fortunate to serve on City Council for 3 terms. As a community member for 26 years, my wife and I raised 2 daughters here. We're fortunate enough to have them go through the Brookings School District, and they moved on to college and have their own personal careers now. And I'm a proud grandparent of 2 granddogs so far. My wife Beth has a career in an engineering firm in town. I have had my own private business of floor covering installation for the past 35 years. It's been a good business. It's been very successful, and I've had a lot of young men and women come through my doors that I was fortunate enough to train to learn how to do the flooring business. As all trades would agree, we have a small employment pool, and that is one of my concerns in this city is we have a lot of job openings. We have worked with the BEDC to enhance education and jobs. Along with that comes affordable housing, as Cassie has suggested, and we in the past and in the future will work with developers to help them make an affordable home that is quality built and locally put together by our local trades. The other thing that would be a major concern of mine that I think we need to consider as we expand is storm drainage. We have lots of projects on the future and ones that we are correcting to help neighborhoods that have existing problems now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer. And now we'll move on to Mr. Collins.
Thank you. My name is Joey Collins. I'd like to thank the Chamber and all the volunteers here for all your help this morning. 21 years ago, I moved to Brookings seeking a beautiful, heartwarming, exceptional community, and I found those elements right here in Brookings. I'm proud to have raised my 2 girls here. While raising my family, I served the great community of Brookings by protecting and serving through law enforcement. Throughout my years in law enforcement, I was honored with a hefty list of awards highlighting my hard work and dedication. I know I can apply my work ethic and drive for helping the community to serve Brookings in a different way. Fighting for the future that's fiscally conservative to ensure our children's future is my passion. Pursuing real practical solutions is my strength, especially in the face of false promises that we see on TV all the time. I think we can be mindful of our budget while allocating our resources to the best of their uses. I believe we can have a substantial relationship among everyone in the community. You know, I was in the military for 3 years. I'm a combat veteran. After that, I worked at the state penitentiary. I moved on into law enforcement, and I worked for the Brookings County Sheriff's Department, and also I retired in 2017 as a lieutenant with the Brookings Police Department. What does that have to do with running for the seat of City Council? It just shows my dedication and hard work in my service to the community, and I want to continue to serve the community of Brookings. in a different way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Well, we'll move into questions, and remember you have 2 minutes to answer each of the questions. We'll start out with kind of a high-level question here about our form of government, and have you describe how you see the role of a council member in a city council, city manager form of government. So the role, basically, the role of a council member in the city council, city manager format of government that we have here in Brookings. And we'll start with Ms. Juba.
Great question. I think the most important role of a city council member is to stay connected and visible in the community. So we are up to date on the concerns of our constituents. It is our job to spend not just the hours in the public meetings, but the hours outside of those meetings, connecting with individuals, experts in the field we're being asked to address, and researching those issues so we make the best decision for our community. The relationship between the city manager and the city council is that the city council makes decisions and should consult the expertise of our fantastic city manager. He has a great track record and a lot of expertise in areas specific to my platform points. So I think a balance between the city council being out in the community and understanding and referring to the expertise of the city manager when needed is imperative of a city council member.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
I feel the role of the city council is to set policy, and the role of the CEO is to perform that policy. In the past, we have changed some of our directions with a new city manager. We have taken steps to make sure that we put away reserves. We've been more proactive, and I think that you can kind of look at the city of Brookings as a corporation, and the city manager is the CEO, and we are the board. And setting aside day-to-day operations, those are for the city manager to take care of. We have to look to the future. We have to be accessible to the public, ask their concerns, and look for the future of what could possibly be the next major step for the city of Brookings. Make sure that we're going the right direction, and give the city manager guidance. We should never sit here and micromanage anything that the city manager does. That's his job, to make sure that the day-to-day operations, and listen to his suggestions. He is an advisor to us also. And if there are concerned citizens that have a beef or a suggestion, they can approach any of the city council or the city manager, or go through the city manager to staff of a certain subject that it is in. I think it's probably the best setup that we can have for government. We have more control this way, and it doesn't consume the time of the city council members. We have other lives to do, and it's good to have a man or woman taking the lead of the business of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. I agree with Opie. I think the job of the city council is to make policy for the city manager to follow and implement. Our city manager does a wonderful job. He's very busy. Every day he's got something going on. I'm not sure how he even gets a break with his jobs. I think we need to also focus on things that generate revenue, as long as it's good for Brookings. And like I said earlier, it's good for the council to write good policy and make sure we're doing the right things for Brookings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. Our next question, and I think we need to kind of talk about sales tax, and talk about it in the current, crisis that we're looking at, plus long term. So the question is, COVID-19 will have an impact on sales tax within Brookings. How will you work to confront this issue? And then take a look at that long term. What do you want to do to increase tax revenue for the city? And we'll start with Mr. Niemeyer.
Okay, so first of all, sales tax is our major revenue. When businesses are closed, people aren't going to restaurants or our lounges. That is probably the majority of our sales tax. So right now, we're going to take a hit. We're going to have to look at possibly closing down possibly facilities, but before we do that, we need to look at maybe cutting close to 30% of our budget, because we're going to lose about 30% of our revenue through this whole process. With that being in mind, there are some capital improvements that we can hold off on, take a look at possibly another revenue source. We have in the past already, in the last year or so, set up where we were putting more into reserves. We obviously will probably have to dip into the reserves that we have, because this is what they were there for. Reserves were designed to handle a disaster like this. And when we first think about natural disasters, say for instance floods or tornadoes, that kind of thing, but this is a natural disaster also. So this is something that we have to take in consideration, is maybe possibly using some of our reserves. We are setting aside money that businesses can work with BEDC, and hopefully now that we have a stimulus package out there, that'll help some of our businesses also. But yes, there are no other revenue sources besides sales tax and property tax and some of the services that the city provides. Maybe possibly working with our reserves to create a better interest rate for the money that we receive on our reserves as far as interest goes. But the only thing that we can really do is possibly maybe expand more retail businesses once we get through this pandemic.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, our sales tax is already down prior to the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's going to be difficult to come back. And I really appreciate all the business owners and everything that did what they had to do and close down, do the smart things. My wife runs a business. She does daycare at home, and she's closed down now, and we've been closed down for 2 weeks. So we know what you're going through, and we know what it's like, and we have to figure out a way to raise our sales tax, not taxes, but to figure out how we can get more sales tax from different areas in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and Ms. Juba, please.
Thank you. As Joey said, a lot of businesses were already seeing a dip in sales. Being a part of the downtown community, I certainly saw that. And I am very proud of local businesses for being ahead and making choices that keep our community safe and healthy while still doing what they can to keep their businesses afloat. Having an organization that is only a year old, I understand those struggles, and we are going to need to take a look at our reserves and also stay in constant communication and be in the doors of these local businesses to see what we can do to help them recover from this crisis. I also think taking a look at a downtown master plan where we have a lot of those businesses taking a hit, developing that and implementing it will help bring in new businesses and more revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is, and this came from a text, what will you do to lower the cost of housing in Brookings? And we'll start with Mr. Collins.
That's a really difficult question. You know, the big question, affordable housing, is a question that's been going on for quite some time. I'm willing to listen to any sort of ideas anybody has. I know there's grants that we can get through the government that might be able to help out. I'd like to see us work more on what we can do for like the lower income families and work together with that, together with everybody, and try to figure out a way to get it lowered. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba?
I think collaboration and bringing people to the table is the most important thing here. In the last few months, I've spent a lot of time with developers and also nonprofits working in affordable and workforce housing. And the general consensus is that developers at the end of the day do need to make money, but they are open to and would like to commit themselves to affordable and workforce housing. I think the council has done a good job in the past taking a look at variances and granting them when needed to make affordable housing more realistic. And I know there's a development with Clark Drew Construction currently in an in-between phase, and I think getting that set up and going so we can see how that functions and how that serves the community is a priority of this council.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
Okay, so I was fortunate enough to be involved in economic development program that the council before I got on had developed, and it was based on using a TIF to help pay for the infrastructure, and the trade-off of that was the two entities that had a couple of affordable housing projects were to set the price of the home at an affordable rate. Both of them were very successful. Both of them were done. I think I want to say that it was over 100 units were done. Valley View and Oakwood Equity were the two entities that, or neighborhoods that were done. They were done in less than 2 years. And they were very successful. Every one of these homes was sold immediately. Fortunately, it was during the stimulus plan that Obama had. You had an $8,000 credit for your taxes. And so it was kind of a windfall for homeowners at the time then. We have not had something like that since. I would highly suggest that we consider doing that again. It was a good way to do it. The price point of the home based on square footage was a requirement. We could probably tweak that a little bit to see what didn't work there and what did. One of the compromises was having smaller lots, narrower streets. I don't know as if we'd do that again. The fire department wasn't too crazy about the narrower streets, and now that some of these homes are being sold again, some of the people moving into them are saying, why do we have such narrow streets? So we have to look at public safety also when we're doing this, and density of the homes, so that it's a possibility of maybe looking at an expansion of a home, or somebody wants to put an extra building in. We need to look at that type of a situation also. I think we should go back to square blocks with alleys. I think we can take a look at that. I think I'm out of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question has to do with mental health care in the city of Brookings. And the question is, what programs can Brookings provide to support mental health needs of our city? And we'll start with Ms. Juba.
I think there are a number of very wonderful organizations in Brookings committed to this ideal, and the council needs to work closely with them. We just saw the state bill for 211 passage come through, and the 211 community and Brookings and the nonprofits that work with it are incredible. So I think the council staying up to date. I know a while ago when Ope was up for re-election in the past, it was a conversation and a study that the council did, and I do think, especially after a difficult time like this, the council needs to look into that again. So staying connected to 211, behavioral health, Brookings Area United Way, nonprofits that provide services and are understanding and connected to the needs of this community is a top priority, because after a crisis like the one we are living through currently, the needs of the community are going to increase inevitably.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
Mental health should be a concern we should keep talking about. We had a retreat a few years back, and I had made mention that we have organizations in this town that have tried to bring it to the forefront. Now that we've had a mental health task force, come up with some suggestions from there. Dan Hansen was heading that up. It's comfortable to talk about mental health now. It used to be that nobody made people nervous to talk about. And I think that if we keep talking about it, take some action on it, support some of our nonprofits. East Central Health is on the forefront of it. We have good people in place to handle the situation. Yes, right now this pandemic is going to cause more people some stress. There's no doubt about it. But if we can help the citizens that do have mental conditions, whether it's medication or counseling, these could become contributing citizens of our society and also be able to hold a full-time job, whereas sometimes in the past they haven't been able to do. So it is a continuing effort. We do, as a city, we should be able to support one way or another, whether it's through trying to help get grants or set up facilities. And the hospital is taking somewhat of a chance at it. And and even with the jail expansion, there is a section in the jail that is set up for mental health. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, I don't think we're doing enough for mental health. I have that unique perspective as being a police officer and being on numerous calls. And what happens is somebody who threatens to hurt themselves. We take them to the hospital, and the hospital does their evaluation. And if they decide to, they either take them to Sioux Falls or to Yankton for a 72-hour hold. Once they're done with that and the doctors say everything's okay, well, they come back to Brookings. They come back to what? We need counseling when they come back. We need to get them in some sort of a program that has to be some sort of an order. And I think, the city council, we need to pay more attention to what's going on in our mental health because it's bad out there. We need to work on it together. Thank you.
And we'll come back to Mr. Niemeyer on this one to start it off. The city has many community boards. What would you change, if anything, to make these more effective?
I guess I don't know if we can improve upon what we already have. We have good citizens and willing volunteers to be on most of our boards. I think that most of the boards that we have right now have been very effective. I think maybe more citizen input wouldn't hurt. Making sure that the schedules for the community boards that we do have are available to citizens, so that, and maybe our public information officer is doing much better at that, since we've changed a little bit in the way how we communicate with the community. If there are concerned citizens that have an issue, I think most of the community boards that we have are more than willing to take those up. Trying to improve upon it, I guess I don't have any major suggestions, except maybe streamlining them so that, if anything, maybe have the meetings public like we have our council meetings and county boards.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yeah, I don't know if I changed too much about any boards. I might like to allocate, some more money to East Central mental health for the mental health issue that we just talked about. When you think about mental health, it's not just somebody wanting to hurt themselves or anything like that. It's the living conditions that some of our kids are living in right now. And I think if we can do something more with that, I'm open for suggestions from the community. I think we need a lot more community input on that matter to help us out. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
As it was communicated before, I do think we have very effective and involved boards. However, I would like to see more community involvement. We have a lot of community members that feel very comfortable reaching out to council and these boards, but there are a lot of people that don't understand how and when to effectively communicate with these boards. So I think it's the job of the council to make sure that they have updates from each of these boards, that they refer to the expertise of each of these boards. And I would personally like to see the council have some sort of open office hour schedule so that the community and the members of these boards have more access to the council members to express their concerns and questions.
Thank you. Now we'll go start this one off with Mr. Collins. Now that the court ruled that the county does not need a city building permit, and that's to build a jail, do you think the city council should have any more involvement in the process?
No. I think we did enough prior to this. I know we spent a lot of money going to court, things like that. I really wish we wouldn't have spent all that money. It is a county issue, and I just think we needed the jail, and it needed to be right there. So I have no issue with the jail. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
I would have to agree. I believe it is time to move on. I understand both sides of the argument, but it is a county issue, and a lot of time and resources have already been spent. And I think when you have conversation with law enforcement officers, that is always the first thing they bring up, whether you're having a professional or personal conversation with them. So it is time to move forward. And I think during a time of a COVID-19 pandemic, it is obvious now that the safety and choices that that building would bring to the staff working there and those spending time there would be critical if this were to ever happen again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer.
All right. When we first decided to go up against the county on this, I was tentative on it. I didn't like the idea, spending taxpayer money to sue taxpayer money. We spent $29,500 on this trying to make a point, and the judge ruled against the city. I think it's time to move on. I think the expansion is necessary. What we have now is antiquated, not sufficient. I think that the new plans, the renditions that I've seen are going to help us for hopefully the next 20 to 30 years. And I'm still not a fan of the expansion at the courthouse location. I think it could have been put somewhere else. We have other communities in the state of South Dakota that have jails that are not connected to the courthouse or near the courthouse. And I wish the county probably would have taken a little bit more time on an alternative location. But it is what it is, and we need to move on. There are other things to be concerned about.
Thank you. And our candidates are doing a terrific job answering the questions, pretty concise, which is great. So we do need more questions. Again, if you have questions and you're watching this on Facebook, you can just comment right in the live comment section, or you can message through Facebook, the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce, or you could text 605-481-2493 or email kelsey@brookingschamber.org. And our next question, we'll start out with Ms. Juba. What service do you do in the community to specifically, and let me start over here. What service do you do in the community and specifically about anything that has been done to help neighbors during the pandemic?
I run a small nonprofit called Play Personalized Learning Adventures for Youth, and currently we are trying not only to best serve our paying clients, but also offer free services to parents that have their children at home and are struggling to keep the balance between staying sane and keeping that educational work go forward. I also serve as a host for 1 Million Cups, which supports and helps develop small businesses and local businesses, and we've been doing the best we can to make smart, safe choices. We're not currently holding 1 Million Cups in the physical space, but making sure that we use online resources to highlight those needs and to highlight those businesses so that when we can return to normal life, those businesses see individuals coming in. I also work with the Council of Nonprofits, so staying connected to those individuals and being on top of mental health needs and people quickly losing income and jobs, and understanding that we will see a spike in unemployment and need to address homelessness and cost of living is what I'm currently doing to make sure that we continue to build Brookings up and are a strong community after we get through this difficult time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer.
I think we need to be worried about the people that are going from paycheck to paycheck. We have families in this town that if the transmission goes out of their car, they can't get to work, they might lose their job. Now we add the pandemic to it, their job might be already eliminated for the moment. I have employees. As a private business owner, I have concerns whether or not the job sites we're going to go to are going to get shut down. We've had a few job sites already. Fortunately, we have 3 hospitals that we're doing that we have to try and get done. But I have taken steps with my employees and said, look, you've got a sniffle, stay home. The rest of us need to keep going. We don't need to put anybody else in endangerment, and that would I would say that we need to explain to our whole public that if you don't need to be somewhere, stay home. The longer we stay apart from each other, the shorter the amount of time it's going to be, so that this curve can go flat and we can move on to a real life again. If anything, make sure that we have available food, available housing. If anybody's got any concerns, I'm sure that we, as a city, can direct them. The number 212, is it? What's the number that we can call?
211.
21, yeah. Call that number, and they will quickly direct you to wherever you may need to have services or help from. We have a good connected community, and there are people here to help. If there are any other concerns, please get on the website for the city, and I'm sure that they can help out also. Like I said, we're all in this together. We need to be able to help each other and get through this, and hopefully everybody stays alive.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yes, I agree with Opie. I think everybody needs to just stay home. The sooner everybody does that, the quicker we can get over this pandemic. And I'm a member of the VFW, American Legion, and Disabled American Veterans. At this point, I'm not sure if we're able to do anything because of the virus and everybody staying at home and everything. I wish there was more I could do. I'm one of those at-risk individuals, so I have to stay locked up, and I have to thank the Chamber for making it available for me to come in today to kind of stay away from everybody. But it is very difficult. Like I said, my wife runs a business, and it's difficult for us, our families that we have. It's difficult for them because they don't have daycare. But we have to be careful, and we have to all do our part to make sure that we're staying at home. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next question will start with Mr. Niemeyer. What specific cuts would you make within the city when faced with budget shortfalls? So what specific cuts would you make within the city budget when faced with shortfalls?
I guess the first thing I would consider is some of the big ticket items that we have for capital improvements, maybe equipment that we have cited for replacement that we could get by another year. Like I said, we're already looking at cutting the whole budget across by 30% and holding off on non-essential things that we need to have now. And of course, the big ticket items would be like a payloader, gravel trucks, maybe postponing the expansion of the landfill. It's already been bid out. Some of those things are going to be in flow already, but there are some projects that we may have specifically. I can't name any right now, but there's nothing wrong with delaying capital improvement purchases. I think would be the first thing that we would consider. I think ongoing maintenance on buildings that if we need these facilities up and running yet, or some things that we may need to do. Budget-wise, I can't think of anything else specifically, but we're already strategically looking at 30% budget cuts across the board, or delaying purchases, I think would be one of the first things we would do.
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Yeah, I think we need to make cuts all across the board, talk to our department heads and see what they can go without for a while and not order anything big. All the big programs or ideas that we had, I think we need to slow everything down for a while. Like the improvement at the I-29 corridor there, I think we need to stop on that for a while, save that money as much as we can, and like I said, just make cuts all across to manage for this till we get through the virus. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba?
I would agree that capital improvements and maintenance, when safe, holding off on all of those things is imperative right now. We have some idea of what the community need is going to be, but we still don't understand where that money is going to need to be spent or how much we will lose. And staying in constant communication with city staff and heads of departments is very important right now. We have a fantastic city staff that are very good at their jobs. So spending time going through a detailed budget with each of them and understanding what things can wait and what things are still important is going to be important to make sure that we get through this without losing a significant amount of money.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Collins. How do we work with employers to increase wages to compete with neighboring states?
Well, as of right now, we're not going to really be able to do anything until we're done with the virus. After that, I'm open for any kind of suggestions or anything, and I think we need to get a hold of the other states and find out how they're doing it, and then maybe copy that plan if it's working for them. But other than that, I think the first thing we have to do is get rid of the virus once that is done, and then I think we can move forward with big plans of doing that. Thank you.
Ms. Juba.
As someone that runs a small organization, I understand all the costs that go into that. So looking at affordable housing, affordable rent, and all of those expenses that come in would be essential, and making sure that these local businesses and larger corporations have the funds to increase wages. I would agree that right now our focus needs to be keeping this community safe and getting those living here currently through this crisis, and then look at how we can increase those wages and get these businesses through this.
Thank you. Mr. Niemeyer.
I think sometimes as a private businessman, I've had to raise my wage rate, even the starting wage rate, to compete against other employers. I think that the competitive market is the one that drives the wage rate. And yes, we are competing against other states. We traditionally have been lower in pay than some of our neighboring states are, but we also need to enhance the idea that the quality of life in South Dakota is much better than some of the other surrounding states. When I talk to other installers in my business throughout the United States, I'm in line as far as my pay scale with those other installers. But those other installers also probably are living in a house the same size as mine, but pay twice as much for it. So I think a lot of times we need to educate people as in what it costs, the cost of living in the state of South Dakota versus living in another state. We don't have an income tax. We have our economy here is a strong economy. We have a lot of jobs. The quality of life is here. Education, health. We need to promote a lot of that besides that. Yes, it's good to earn more. Self-education gives you a better position for a better paying job. Other competing businesses, I mean, as long as most of our businesses in town are looking for help, they may have to raise their wage rate in order to get that quality employee over versus, say, the other employer. So a lot of times I consider the private industry as the driver of what a wage rate can be.
Thank you. Our next question, we'll start with Ms. Juba, and it's really a two-part question. It has to do with the city-owned liquor store. So the first part of the question is, should the liquor store reopen in Brookings? And the second is city ownership of a business like the liquor store still a good idea? So we'll start with Ms. Juba.
With what's going on right now, that is something I've certainly wrestled with. I do not think we should be reopening the liquor store. I know it is tempting because it brings in money for the city, but as we've spoken about earlier, we need to take this seriously, and we need to only go out when it is essential. And the faster that we take this seriously and the more seriously we take staying home and only going out when needed, the quicker we can go back to business as usual. The summer is going to be essential for these businesses to rebuild themselves, and we need to know that we are safe going forward in the summer months. I know that the city being involved with the liquor store has been up for discussion in the past. I would like to eventually see them not be connected. However, I don't think right now it is realistic to cut those ties because the city is going to need that flow of income. Thank you.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Currently, it is closed. There has been some discussion of maybe reopening it based on limited access to the liquor store, such as maybe carry out or drive up. Since we don't have a drive up window, carry out would probably be they're looking at possibly setting up some situation where customers can come to the door. I don't know how all that is going to look like yet. As far as maybe privatizing the liquor store or maybe considering having agents sell alcohol for the city. That has been in discussion in the past. It's always kind of gone along the wayside. We create $500,000 worth of revenue off of that, and most of that money goes to, for instance, you could look at it this way, the budget we have for nonprofits, that outside agencies that we support, pretty much gets covered by the amount of money that comes off of the revenue for that liquor store. I've always kind of looked at it that way. I think that There is time for open discussion of maybe privatizing it. What that system would look like, I have no idea. I would expect that we would have more than one agent, maybe retail grocery stores, maybe a private entity that wants to expand their convenience stores. There are different models out there. It has been a revenue source for the city of South Dakota, or city of Brookings, for numerous years. It would not be something I would take lightly if we made decisions in that direction.
Thank you. Mr. Collins?
Yes, I would also say no to opening it back up again. It goes along with the COVID virus. If we just stay at home and do what we're supposed to do, I think we can get over this a lot quicker, and we can open it up a lot quicker as well. As far as privatizing, I would also say no on that. It's too much income for the city right now, and we need that for, if you want our roads to be nice, if you want our police department squared away, if you want all the things that come with the city of Brookings, we have to keep that revenue, and we just need to keep it for now. But I'm open for any conversation, and if anybody can change my mind, well, that would be great too. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba? Oh, I'm sorry. I think, has all three answered that one? Okay. I shouldn't have put that question away so quick. Okay, so then our next question goes to Mr. Niemeyer. This is an email question. Due to an increase in online shopping, do you have any ideas for the marketplace project?
Currently, we have signed letters of intention. That's as far as we've gotten so far. The online sales versus retail has always been a discussion. I think that if anything, we should support our local entities first before we look anywhere else. Obviously, being 45 minutes from Sioux Falls, we have a lot of retail drainage to begin with. But I think that homegrown businesses would be something that we should support more than anything. Some of the businesses we have in downtown Brookings right now are a good example of using them as a model to start up a homegrown business. We have a few businesses down there that are just thriving. They have an excellent business model. I think that maybe if we do fortunately get someone to start going out to the marketplace, eventually there'll just be a domino effect, and we'll have more coming behind that. It is an opportunity. Right now, the economy is not doing well again. And retail is struggling because of online sales. I get it. A lot of these stores are looking at smaller box stores, smaller square footage. We have been approached once by a outlet project, and that went along the wayside. So it is an ongoing project. We also are always willing to help and support BADC with the other developers that have retail space also. It's not just about the marketplace. We need to remember that we have developers that have business space also in different regions of the city. We are finally getting sales tax from the online sales, which is a plus. And yes, it is a hard thing to compete against, but please support your local businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Yes, again, I agree with Opie. I think, we're already hurting since we went down a percentage from sales tax from last year, and the commitments that we have to pay for now and in the future. We need our people in Brookings to shop in Brookings first before they go anywhere else. I like the fact that we are getting sales tax now from online shopping, but maybe some more marketing we could do. I'm open to any ideas anybody has to help move it forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Juba.
I agree, whether it be the marketplace or other small businesses in town, it is very important for us to be spending our money locally whenever possible. These small businesses were the leaders when it came to making sure that we stayed safe but still functioned as much as possible during this COVID-19 crisis. So making sure that we spend money at these places and shop locally and help them market themselves to the community is very important. These are also the businesses that buy Girl Scout cookies from your kids or donate packages to nonprofits. They give back to the community. So when you are spending money locally, you are investing back in a business that has been invested in this community and the needs of the people living here.
Thank you. We'll now start off, or this next question will start off with Mr. Collins. And it's an email question. Should the 22nd Avenue project continue in light of the tax revenue loss?
That's a difficult question. I think it needs to move on, but again, because of the virus that's going on right now, we have to pause things like that for a while until we can get back on our feet. Maybe next year, when this is all over, we can go back to it and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba?
I think moving forward is a good idea. Taking a look at the phases and pauses that are available in that project would be very important, but I believe it's a project that's already had its foot in the door and we need to continue, but taking a look at how far forward we can work and the phases of that project will be very important to make sure that we are keeping a balanced budget.
Thank you. Ms. Niemeyer?
Are we talking about the 20th Street interchange, or are we talking about continuing the project on 22nd Avenue going south of where we've already been?
My understanding of the question is 22nd Avenue.
Okay, so nothing's happening on 22nd Avenue in the year 2020. We are slated to do more on it in 21, but that doesn't mean that it can't be delayed. As far as the 20th Street interchange, that is a timed event. We need to keep going on that, or this grant is not going to be available. And as far as the 22nd Avenue goes, if I'm understanding correctly, and my knowledge sometimes is vacant in my mind, but we are not doing anything on 22nd Avenue this year. I think is slated to do the rest of the improvements south of where we ended in year 2021 or 22, and then eventually everything north of 6th Street going towards 14 Bypass is slated for the third phase. So just to clarify the understanding of that.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Ms. Juba. It's an emailed question. Should the city invest in land? Why or why not?
The city investing in land, I think, is an important part, possibly in developing workforce and affordable housing and talking to developers and deals that they can make with the city when purchasing land or developing on land using TIFs and different grant money that is available. I think that that will help solve the issue of workforce and affordable housing. What we consider affordable is not necessarily realistic for a lot of the people struggling in this city. There is a underserved population that cannot afford to stay here. So I think that that would be a possibility for the council to look into that could help move forward action on those projects.
Thank you, Mr. Niemeyer.
So in the past few years, we've had some opportunities to purchase some land that was owned by the state. We have chose not to. We have some industrial land that's available for expansion through the BEDC that we can offer. We have business sites by, say, Capital Card Center and the Newspaper Association that's available for, say, a business entity that wants to put a large building in. We do have the marketplace for development. I think that that should be sufficient. As far as purchasing land for affordable housing, there is land available now. There are developers that are looking at it. I think if we did anything, we should be able to help with the infrastructure or cost of it. Like I said, through using the tool of a TIF, property tax rebate incentives for short term. I think purchasing land to maybe enhance affordable housing, I think the city should stay out of that. If we do anything, we should be able to enable developers. I don't want to get too far into it. We start competing against our private entities. Public-private partnerships will go away along the wayside. I'm more into public and private partnerships than I would be to initiate a development on our own.
Thank you, Mr. Collins.
Yes, I think we should invest in land. I think it's important that we do that. If we talk about affordable housing, I just don't know what's affordable housing here in Brookings. Or, I mean, what's the number? Is it like 150 to, 175? Land is expensive right now, and it's, land is only, the land that you buy for your house is only supposed to be 30% of the house's value or whatnot. And I think if we can invest in as much land as we can, we will see a return of investment off that. So I think, yes, I think we need to invest in land, and I think we need to help with infrastructure and things like that to help people be able to afford houses.
Thank you. We've done really well. Actually, I think we'll only not be able to get to one of the questions, which is terrific. We've got one more left here. Matter of fact, we're going to make this one a little bit of a lightning round where you got 1 minute to answer it. But it's a one-thing question, so it shouldn't take longer than a minute. And we'll start with Mr. Niemeyer. What is the one thing you feel you could bring as a council member that sets you above the others?
I guess obviously experience. Having been on council for 3 terms, I've seen a lot of things come and go. I've seen a lot of projects that have been a major success, but I've also seen some situations where we've had some failures and something that we can learn from. I still believe that the Brookings City Council should be proactive like we have been and not reactive. I think that is probably the best approach that we can do is be proactive, plan for situations. We set aside money to plan for this pandemic. We have reserves. We have changed how we maintain our buildings. We're putting money aside for future maintenance on the buildings. And I think that with the experience that I've had, sets me apart from the other 2 candidates.
Thank you. Mr. Collins, what was the one thing you feel you could bring as a council member that sets you above the others?
I have a unique perspective. Since I did work for the city, I know how the city works. I know what the departments need. I know what they don't need. I feel that just that experience alone will, I just want to be your independent voice. Essentially, I want people to contact me with any questions or anything, and I'll help you out. I'll listen. And like I said, I have that unique perspective since I did work for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
I think my connection and perspective, I have recently started a small organization and I understand more closely the needs of someone trying to start out, and I'm connected to that community that had been struggling before this pandemic and is struggling more significantly, and that group is growing at this time. So I would say my connection and knowledge of that group, and always doing my homework and making sure that I understand what those people need and what the city can do to help those individuals.
Thank you, Ms. Juba. So now we will have 1 minute closing, just if there's some other things that you would like to say. And so it'll be 1 minute, and we'll just go the reverse direction, and we'll start with Mr. Collins.
Well, thank you again. I'd like to thank everybody here for attending. Thank my opponents for attending as well, and I know that they have the interest of Brookings foremost first, as I do. But I think, I've been around a while. I have a lot of contacts in the city, and I've been here for 21 years. I feel my experience and my contacts, I can bring that to the city council and do what we need to do to move the city forward. Thank you.
Mr. Niemeyer.
Thank you all for putting this forum on. I think it's been a success. I've learned a lot. Never admitted that I know everything. But I asked the community to make sure that you... Oh, I didn't have my mic. I'm sorry. I asked the community to please vote. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to serve this great community of Brookings, South Dakota. I think that it is your right and privilege to vote for the people that support you. And please vote. Your opinion counts. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Juba.
I want to thank everyone that was a part of putting this together, everyone for tuning in and submitting questions, and my fellow candidates. It's really exciting to see individuals want to serve the community that we love so much. I also want to thank everyone that's been committed to keeping this community safe and healthy and meeting the needs of those during this time. In the coming months, we are going to need to stay connected, and I know that I have the energy and dedication to revitalize the city after we grow through this difficult time. So as Ope said, please come out and vote. Make sure you are safe when you vote, and I hope the next time that I get to chat with people in this room, I am getting to work as your newest city council member. Thank you.
Well, thank you to all the candidates. We're in some difficult times, and it's just great to see that we have candidates that want to run and want to help out during these trying times. I've sat and done several of these forums. I've also sat in those chairs running for different offices. And one of the things that's kind of nice at the end of it, because you're nervous, no matter what, you're nervous, you're wondering about this, and it's great to have the crowd clap for you at the end. So we're going to have, there's five of us here, but hopefully people at home will clap for you guys because it's terrific what you're doing. And with that, I'll turn it back over to our Chamber Executive Director, Kelsey Doom.
Awesome. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're really just excited that we could do this. Thank God for technology. So we are going to stop this video and then get everybody set up for the school board forum, and that'll take place at 10:15. So if you want to tune in, go for it. You can text questions to 481-2493, email them to kelsey@brookingschamber.org, or message the Brookings Chamber Facebook page. So thank you guys.
Not having people in the room for the questions and such, but we just finished up with the City Council forum, and it went very well. So it's going to go well for what we're doing here also. Let's go over again how you can submit questions. We need to have questions from those that are watching. You can comment right on the Facebook Live if you're watching from there. You can Facebook message the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce. You can text to 605-481-2493, or you can email Kelsey, which is Kelsey, @brookingschamber.org. There could be, I serve as your state representative here in District 7, and there could be a change in the election date. On Monday, we will take up a bill that the governor has suggested that could move the election to a Tuesday in June, and of course that would also still be tentative, but at least it does push the election out. So we'll find out more about that on Monday, or when the bill actually gets taken up and if it's approved and signed by the governor. I want to thank the candidates for running. Now I'll introduce our candidates, and we have Tashi Birando, Wes Cheddar, Jackie Johnson, and Kyle Dahl. How the forum will work here is we'll have a 2-minute intro from everybody, and then we'll have 2 minutes for each question that you each have. The timer is Dan over there, and if you keep an eye on him. And then we'll see how we're doing for time remaining on how long there'll be closing comments. I'd also ask that you pause just for a minute as Kelsey moves the Facebook camera around to make sure that it's in front of you so people can hear your answers. And so we will start off with our introductions, or opening comments, and that's with 2 minutes. And our first person will be Tashi Birando. Go ahead.
Ampe tu ashte, Tashangnumpa Barando Amachiapi. It's a good day. My name is Tashangnumpa Barando, and I want to thank you for tuning in to this interesting format we have. I was thinking, some of us we have submitted videos with 1 million cups as well, and I really appreciate everything the Brookings community is doing using technology so that our democratic process can continue to roll along even during a pandemic. So I just wanted to thank you. And it actually kind of made me think of something in Lakota that the men practice called waglotopi. And because I don't know about any of you, but I think we're South Dakotans, talking about ourselves is not something we want to do for that many minutes. Anyway, it was a sharing of deeds to build up the whole community. So I think that's what we're all doing here, and I'll do my best. Whether it's American Indian families facing unexpected obstacles during commencement, or children being overly tracked as they get older and creating a deep divide between the trades and liberal arts, I will be the voice that speaks to real-life issues facing 21st century families. Currently, I'm a homemaker, wife, and mother of 5. Last year, as a mother, I had a child in elementary, intermediate, middle, and high schools in the Brookings School District, as well as a baby at home. With this experience of parenting children in all the schools recently and 3 currently, I will bring to the Brookings School Board a needed reality check of how school policies affect everyday families. Professionally, I've worked as a weekly newspaper editor and reporter covering school boards and municipalities, both West and East River. I've also worked to support my family when needed as a worker in the Brookings manufacturing industry. I'm a tribal member from the Oglala Sioux tribe, born in Pine Ridge, and my family is here because my mother and I are also descendants of early Brookings County settlers, and we make our home in the Hillcrest neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to Wes Cheddar.
Thank you. I'm Wesley Cheddar, and I'm a candidate for school board, and I want to thank you for listening in and being a part of this virtual experience, which is new for us as well. I'm a candidate for the school board because I believe and I feel we have a great investment in our present school system. I'm an incumbent and I'm running for re-election. 2 years ago, if you recall, we had a disastrous $5 million opt-out, and I saw that need for perhaps more financial and fiscal planning. So there I am as having been the Vice President of Finance and CFO at South Dakota State University for a bulk of my career. Before that, I worked for the South Dakota Legislature, as including the Director of the Legislative Research Council. I'm involved in local community and statewide boards and commissions. I've served on currently on the as chair of the Advanced Foundation Board, whose role is to improve the facilities and support our advanced program, and we have been highly successful in that, including under my leadership. I care about Brookings. I care about the children we serve. Our learners deserve the best education we possibly can. Our taxpayers deserve accountability. And of course, our teachers and support staff, administrators deserve the best support system we can give them within the resources we have. And therefore, I'm a candidate for re-election for a 3-year term, and I appreciate your support.
And now we'll hear from Jackie Johnson.
Hey everyone, thank you for joining us today for this virtual forum. Like we said, it's a little different than what we're used to, but we're here and we're doing this, and I'm glad everybody's here. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a candidate for the school board, and my family and I live here in Brookings, and I primarily grew up actually in Wyoming in the Rock Springs Green River area, and I moved to South Dakota as a sophomore in high school, where I graduated from T.F. Riggs in 2000. When I graduated, then I went to the University of South Dakota and pursued my business degree in health administration. So yeah, I know it's a little hard to be a USD grad and live in Brookings, but still something. So, and then after that, I moved to Brookings in 2004, and I began working at Daktronics. Worked there for a little while, and then switched my career and moved to Sanford Clinic and worked there for about 8 years, and I am currently working at Brookings Vision Center as an optometric assistant. During all of this time, I was also a coach for a cheer and dance, as well as a couple other things that I did within the community. And I also was on the board, the education board at our church, which currently has a daycare and school, so that I could bring a little bit of information that way. And I'm also right now the CFO of our company that my husband and I own called M.R. Johnson Furnishings. So I really think that fiscal responsibility and budgeting is something that's very important within our school district. I know we do that now and we do a good job at it, but continuing to do that is something that's very important. I also feel that having parents on the school board is a good idea, as the decisions that are made by the school board affect us and our children. You know, if school isn't going to be held, then that's something that we have to go through as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to Kyle Dahl.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kyle Dahl. I'm currently the State Electrical Inspector for District 3, which means it comprises of Brookings County, also includes Hamlin, Dual, and Grant counties, so I have quite an area to cover. Took on this job in 2018 after the state had contacted me to fill the position that was vacant for a number of months. I began working in Brookings in 1996 for a local contractor, worked my way up the ladder from there. Worked for one contractor at that time and then switched over to another in 2002. And then worked that job as electrical manager until my resignation to take on the state electrical inspector job. I live with my wife and children. I have one in junior school. One is a 7th grader and one is a 3rd grader. So I also have children in school, and I think that is an important part of the process of becoming on the board member. Looking on to other things, I do believe in community involvement also. Not one to sit on the sidelines and complain about the way things are run. I'm usually one to step in, get involved, and try and come to a solution at that point. Further on, in a perfect world, things weren't going on the way they were, which is it's a test for both parents and the school to do online and close schooling. We'll see how this works through, but it will pass. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle. Just as a reminder for questions, if you're watching this on Facebook Live, you can comment for the question. You can Facebook message the Brookings Area Chamber of Commerce, or you can text 605-481-2493, or email kelsey@brookingschamber.org. And our first question is an email question, and we'll start with Ms. Barando. And the question is, do you support a bond referendum to upgrade Madary Elementary and replace Hillcrest with a new school? And you'll have 2 minutes to answer the questions.
I think we need to do research to look into the state of our facilities, especially over at Hillcrest. I think any of us who are parents over at Hillcrest, which I am, we do walk through there and see that things aren't quite the way they are over at, say, Camelot. And we all want the absolute best for our children. And I feel that we're getting close to capacity. Madary would be an obvious choice because of the land around it that could be expanded into. Although I really feel that we miss something when we don't have more neighborhood-oriented schools. So my answer would be, I'm not sure, but I think that's a very good idea to look into. And we are going to need to be looking at it fairly soon, I believe, with the increasing class numbers. My son, Hillcrest, also is responsible for the SDSU kindergarten program. And so that's another part of administration that has to come out of the Hillcrest school. So it's definitely something we need to be looking at. But we would also have to look at busing, because currently we have bus stops at Hillcrest that go to all the other schools for the inter-school busing, and that's a really important service. So it would also affect our busing, not just our facilities. So I think it's a larger part of, looking at the whole ecosystem, so to speak, of how the schools work together currently, and again, that neighborhood school situation.
Thank you. Mr. Cheddar.
I've given a lot of thought to this in terms of what we may need to do for Madary and Hillcrest. Both of them need substantial improvements relative to the infrastructure. We have, meanwhile, invested $24 million into the Mickelson Middle School. I believe that the taxpayers and the supporters need to have full knowledge of what's going on. I am working on a plan financial plan that within the existing resources we can do $6 million, possibly $8 million worth of improvements. That doesn't take away if the question, though, is whether or not we should build a new school. But the taxpayers need to know what the alternative is to a new school relative to the financial obligation that would be undertaken. We have 1/3 of our capital outlay fund right now is going just to the Mickelson Middle School. And we have deferred maintenance. We've got purchasing of textbooks and technology and school buses and all that come out of the capital outlay fund, which is about a $5.3 million tax revenue and resource. So I think the constituency here in Brookings needs to have facts. We need to have input from the community. We need to have input from the families that attend these two schools. We need to have input from the teachers. I'm going to say it twice because I think teachers who work there every day need to have particularly good chance for input. And of course, we need to have input from the greater Brookings community. So this is a process. So my answer is let's engage in a process and collectively in the community decide whether or not we're going to invest in renovation or we're going to invest in a new school. A new school is $16 million, so we have to balance that. And that was what was invested in the Dakota Prairie. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Ms. Johnson on this. I'll repeat the question. Do you support a bond? Let me start all over there. Do you support a bond referendum to upgrade Medarie Elementary and replace Hillcrest with a new school?
I agree with the other two candidates is that we really need to do research into this and find out what is best for our children. We have lots of big classes coming through Brookings right now, and I know that there's been many classes that they weren't expecting to be as big. I know my daughter's class is one of the biggest classes right now in the school district. So we really need to do planning, find out what's best for our community and what's best for our taxpayers, as they're the ones that are going to be paying for renovations or a new school or whatever we decide. And I really think that there's going to have to be a lot of planning going into this so that we don't run into problems with it not being done in the correct time or something like that, or it not being up, the children having to adjust to different situations that, can definitely make their school year a lot more stressful. So definitely need to do some research on this and see what's best for the children in our communities and in those areas that live around the schools. Medarie right now could definitely use some renovations. I have a child who goes to Medarie, but I also feel that, there's probably other schools within the district that could use that as well. So definitely, I would say my answer is, we need to plan it out. We need to come up with an idea for everybody of, which would be best, maybe give them some options, a new school or just renovate, and then how would we figure that out as a district. So thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll move on to Mr. Dahl.
That is an excellent question on what's the best approach to remodel, upgrade, or replace. And looking forward to look to the future, Medarie Elementary is a 1970s building, and upkeep has been normal on that for a building of that size and age. Hillcrest Elementary is a 1950s building, and life expectancy on these buildings when they're put up usually was a 50-year lifespan on those. Hillcrest has exceeded that already, and finding the money to continue with maintenance on that, balance that against replacing the structure. Long term, we're not looking 5 years, we're looking 10, 20 years. Replacing Hillcrest may be on Brookings School District's best option. Short term, we'd like to find the money to upgrade and upkeep the buildings rather than replace them at this time. Sometimes throwing money at the solution is not always the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dahl. And as we talk about replacing Hillcrest, I just need to comment that I graduated from fifth grade at Hillcrest. So that school has been around for a long time. Our next question will start with Mr. Cheddar, and this is an email question. Do you support building an alternative school if it means cutting budgets elsewhere?
Currently, the high school, under the leadership of Dr. Jensen, is going through a powerful planning process to identify the need. You have to start communicating what the needs are for our somewhat about 950 high school students, and what we can do to better serve them relative to absenteeism, failing grades, and also source of other cultural and practical issues relative to about 100 students. And so I believe in the planning process. I believe that we can get there from here. We're going to identify resources, and there is a process in place that is looking at how we can find about $200,000, give or take, to implement in the current CTE building, which has been now in a planning process, is available for additional use, including this program. So to answer your question, I support the alternative high school. I think we can get there without a real dramatic shift in resources, and to in that we will have 100, maybe 60, 80, 100 students, but then that will change the mix at the high school. So we may be redirecting some resources from the high school, but there's been no conversation that there's going to be a redirection from other schools in our 3,400 student district to support the alternate high school.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
This question has come up a few times already. When I first heard this question, I really wanted to do some more research on it, as I had not known this was a plan in Brookings, and I did my research on what they've come up with so far in the planning process, and I really did not realize how many students it affects. I think this is a great way to help those students that may need additional, things from, like he said, being truant or failing grades. Those students might just need a little extra, and this might be the way to do it. They kind of wanted to do it as a setup of more of a MCL, which is kind of at their pace of learning, and I think that's a great idea. But I also really think for sure we need to start with the planning first and figure out what's the best way to do it and make it fiscally responsible for our, school district, and make sure that it meets the needs of these students before anything else, because they're the ones that are gonna, get the most out of this. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'll repeat the question here. Do you support building an alternative school if it means cutting budgets elsewhere? Mr. Dahl?
Yeah, thank you for that question. It's very unfortunate that a few years ago we did have something like that. It was Select High, and I've had a few parents ask me if I was going to be talking about that and attempting to bring back that concept. Some students, agreeably, through school and high school, do need a little extra help before they're allowed to graduate and sent out into the public. These programs do offer that before the individual, the student, gives up completely and drops out of school. Legal or not, it does happen. Seen other school districts struggle with this too. They're drop out before they're given the help they need. And the phrase in that question that I caught is if we're willing to build another school such as that. Don't see the need to build a school to house alternative learning center like that. We can look at places around that would be available for leasing long term, rather than going through another bond referendum for building that structure. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have Ms. Mirando answer this question.
Thank you for that question. I do not think whether it's finding funds from somewhere else or creating a new line item or some other funding structure, if we had $1 million to throw at it, let me put it that way, I don't believe we need an alternative school. I graduated in 2000 from Volga, so I knew kids that utilized Select because they had issues with being in juvie, or had skipped school enough, or whatever their issues were, they ended up over there. And so it was a small office structure over by downtown. It didn't see that many kids, although I believe they also helped do some of the planning. And because of budget cuts, I believe, is why we don't have Select High. So there are obviously children in our school district who are dealing with legal issues and learning issues. But my main concern, and this is what I've had people contact me once they knew I was running for school board, was that they were worried about a separate but equal situation. Are you going to have all the chemistry facilities? Are you going to have all of the facilities for those children as you would for the quote-unquote good students? The other thing is, I just had a senior graduate from high school, very bright student, if I do say so myself, freshman at DSU now, and truancy and wandering the hallways is an issue. It was an issue for him, although at least he wasn't getting in trouble. He did often want to work on debate or one thing or the other, and sometimes his teachers didn't know where he was. So right now, I don't know if you know this, there's boards over one of the bathrooms in the high school because of vaping issues. This is not an alternative school issue. This is a supervisory issue that we can fix with TAs in the hall. Thank you.
Thank you. And I want to thank the public for all the questions we're getting. We're getting some really good questions. So this next one will start with Ms. Johnson. And the email question is, mass customized learning has been implemented in elementary and middle schools. Do you support this model for high school? And we'll go ahead and start with Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for that question. Mass customized learning came into Brookings a couple of years ago when my son started kindergarten. I currently do not have a child in mass customized learning, but I know they're planning on moving forward with it within the school district. I support it at the high school level, but I also feel that there needs to be an option for a traditional classroom, as mass customized learning may not fit every student. There are some students that, need that traditional teacher helping them, teacher kind of, you need to get this done, we need to do this type thing. And I really feel that we should have the option as parents and as, our students to be able to pick a traditional classroom if they want. So I support it moving forward. I just would like to know maybe a little more about what their plan for the future is in 5 years, in 10 years. How are these kids going to go to college with, the mass customized learning, as that's not something that's there right now. So that would be an interesting thing to see how they move forward with their education. But I really feel we should have the option of having both the mass customized learning as well as the traditional classrooms within our whole school district. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Mr. Dahl.
Thank you. That question was also addressed with 1 million cups, and thinking long and hard on that. I do have one, my youngest is enrolled in that program. I can see it making a difference right away with the way he learns and the way he engages himself with the learning on there. I still see this as a pilot program and needs to be monitored very closely to see, like Ms. Johnson said, what's it going to be in 5 years? What's it going to be in 10 years? If they do show signs of staying equal with their classmates, it's worth continuing. If the newness wears off on this and the students resort back to below standards, it may have to be an idea that's abandoned and address another program that may help them. But I see this as still being a pilot program that needs to be monitored very closely.
Thank you. And I'll repeat the question. Mass customized learning has been implemented in elementary and middle schools. Do you support this model for high schools? And we'll go to Ms. Barando.
I believe that MCL is a fad in education currently, and as other schools drop it, I think Brookings will find themselves doing it as well. I do believe in individualized learning for gifted as well as children who also need other help. I feel that the Brookings School is doing a fantastic job. One of the things that I think we are seeing is some children do want to move quicker, other children need a little more help. And I feel, though, that MCL is not always the way to do that, that traditional teaching is very, very necessary, and that they're there for a reason. I also feel that sometimes whether it's alternative school or MCL. Sometimes this is also a Band-Aid fix for ADHD learners, where they actually have issues with executive function. So self-paced is not always the thing that they should be doing. Instead, they should be encouraged to do enrichment projects within their own traditional classrooms. So I do not really support MCL, although I am interested in hearing from parents and children who have found it to be something that has really powerfully changed their educational experience for the better. I think we can learn from them, but I am not certain that this is a very, I also believe it's very much a pilot type program. And I also would like to ask how much money we've spent on the resources for this, which I'm sure Wes could tell us better, as that's one of the larger criticisms actually of MCL, is that it's a fad pushed by corporations. So maybe you can enlighten us on that. It is something I'm curious about, so thank you.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to Mr. Cheddar to answer the question.
In the last 2 years, I've asked a lot of questions about the program. I've visited classrooms. I visited particularly at length with Donna DeCry's classroom at the Dakota Prairie, and it is impressive. On the other hand, it's not new. I went to country school, and we had such a program, although it was not called that, in which you have were able to advance in your areas beyond your stated grade. I believe in leadership. I believe in leadership of our school system. I believe in leadership that starts with everybody that's involved in our school system, including the teachers. And I have to say that they understand the balance between a traditional school setting, classroom, and the MCL. And with that, we have that balance in our current school system. As far as high school, we need to continue understand that we need a balance. We need a balance between those who want to remain in a traditional setting and those in in this new program. This program has been tried a lot of places, in high school as well. But I think these programs will evolve. Nothing is static. We're learning from it. We have teachers every day that go in the classroom who are doing their best, highly stressful environment, to do their best every day to make this program successful and to give the children. Now, if you watch the video that was done of Maderi, we have it is a mind changer in terms of how these kids view the program. So I would say that I would support looking at it and planning, and that at some point in time the superintendent and the school board will have to make a decision. And at this point in time, I'm certainly open to the program as it relates to the high school.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next question, and Mr. Dahl will be starting with this question. And actually, we've gotten the question twice here, once by email, one by text. And the question is, with the city population growth shifting to the south-southwest, work will need to be done with the school boundaries and neighborhood schools. The other question added on to that about Aurora's growth also, so be considering Aurora when you're answering this question also. What are the candidates' thoughts on changing school boundaries to accommodate this growth? And we'll start with Mr. Dahl.
Thank you. In fact, school boundary is something that's required to be readdressed in 2 years by the school board. By that time, I also see considerable growth to the south, and with the developments going on in Aurora, we're probably looking at adding and shifting school boundaries to the south and to the east considerably. With that area and center of population, more of the building that we would need to do would most likely be taking place during that toward that direction. Each elementary boundary is specifically, I'm sure, what the question is about. Each elementary boundary is required to maintain equal enrollment. So as we see where the developments and growth are going, that too is also the direction that we would need to focus on incorporating and shifting boundaries as required to maintain equal attendance throughout the elementaries.
Thank you. And now we'll have Ms. Mirando answer this question.
I think it's very important to keep the integrity of our school boundaries as neighborhood schools, at least at the elementary level. And so, you know, it is something that obviously is just part of the planning that goes on. As far as, I'm not sure if the question meant extending the Brookings school district boundary in and of itself. And again, obviously, you know, it should keep pace with the city and beyond, again, for that community reason. And, you know, that's something that's obviously just built into the planning and we'll be looking at. So that's what I got.
Okay, thank you. I'll repeat the question here. With the city population growth shifting to the south-southwest, work will need to be done with the school boundaries and neighborhood schools. We want you to consider Aurora also with this, as we had a question about Aurora. What are the candidates' thoughts on changing school boundaries to accommodate this growth? And we'll go to Mr. Cheddar.
Well, we used to be a 10-section school, and now we're a 13-section school. So obviously there's been growth in the last 15 years. And this is largely a K through 3 issue impacting the 3 elementary schools. And the fact is we have a 3-section school at Hillcrest, a 4-section school at Madera, give or take, and a 5-section school with some sections at 6, classes at 6 in Dakota Prairie. And so the question is then, where do you move the boundaries? This takes a lot of study, folks, and I think Kyle was right in that there's a policy at the board to review this in 2 years. And so we have a lead time. One of the first questions we ask is, how does this affect the local school, a community school, and just where do you move that boundary, and how does it affect the local property tax values? With that, I think we ought to ask the people who know, and that's people who are in the real estate business would be one area I'd ask. We'd get input from those who are probably marginalized in terms of where they're at and located and would be changed. This has happened before, and you have to have information system out there that people know well in advance. This is a subject that's coming up. This is going to affect you, and not just spring it upon the community, which in a prior era had happened. And so I believe that there will need to be some change, but the change has to be planned and has to be based on data. We need to know the numbers. Will it change a 3-section school, or will it maintain a 3-section school at Hillcrest? This is the fundamental question that our data has to drive our process, and you have to start the process relatively soon. And the person that's elected in this election will certainly be facing that in the process of the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. And now I'll have Ms. Johnson answer the question.
Thank you for this question, as I live a little bit in that area, and when we first did the boundaries a couple years ago, it was really hard to know, okay, which school is my child going to go to, and how does it affect my child? You know, if they've already been in school for 2 years and then like to go to a different school, it might be a little different for them. But I totally understand there's a ton of growth going on over there, and I really think redoing the boundaries every couple of years is a great idea, just like Kyle said. I mean, that's already something that we're going to plan on doing. There is a ton of growth in that area. I also really think we need to be diligent, though, in making sure that, again, the planning comes into play and that we do have these correctly divided so that the schools have all the things that they need, whether it be enough funding to do the title program for kids that need it, or lunch program, or whatever that may be. We need to make sure that when we do the boundaries for the schools, that all of those schools are able to have those things to offer to students. As I know, when Dakota Prairie was first built, they didn't have that kind of funding to have a title program for their students. So I really think that's something that we need to be diligent about as members within the school district, so that we can offer all of those to the students based on the boundaries. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. And this question will start with Ms. Mirando. What is your position on the school Sentinel program?
Well, I'm wondering if this question isn't partially looking at school sentinels who are carrying weapons on them, if that's
Yes, I think
maybe
it's the-
what they're asking.
I think it has to do with the carrying of
Mhm.
weapons.
So, you know, I graduated high school in the year 2000. Littleton happened when I was in high school. And so there's many days now as a mother where, you know, you send your kids to school and you just pray that they will be safe. But I will tell you what I tell my children, and, you know, I grew up West River where things are a little bit different. But I tell my kids that, you know, some of our children are, you know, taught to do the shelter in place. But I tell my kids, especially the older ones, that if they see something happening and they know they are in danger, I'd rather they were killed with a bullet in the front of them than the bullet in the back of them, that they face it head on. I'm not always real impressed with how some of the training we're doing because there is other training that's coming out. That said, I don't really want to see any guns in our school, including with the Sentinel program. I don't think it creates an atmosphere that is conducive to unarming children who are considering the horrific acts that some children choose to consider. So that is what I feel. Again, I feel instead of sentinels, we should be talking about better policies, especially at the Brookings High School. They try to keep the doors locked, yet children do wander the halls. Students who do well are just ignored, and kids who cause a little bit of trouble are obviously worried about. Again, 2 bathrooms have been boarded shut due to vaping issues. We already have a situation at the Brookings High School, and it could be fixed with more TAs and more administration in the hallways assisting teachers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cheddar.
If you've been to the school system and entered it, the security system that's in place has changed dramatically since a decade ago and evolves into a more secure environment for our students. Things can happen though, but right now we have improved security in place with a change in the way you enter the Mickelson Middle School. These are all efforts to improve the security of our students, our staff, and whomever might be going to the school system for deliveries or whatever else. My answer is no. At this point, I think that we have some efforts we can make to improve security, and we don't need guns in school. And that is, but on the other hand, we have leadership in the school system. If they have the data and can show where we can improve, and maybe we need to make some financial investment in security as well, then that's a different issue, and we'll take you down a different path in terms of the decision process.
Thank you. And the question we have right now in front of us is, what is your position on the school Sentinel program? Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for this question, as I feel this is something that has been debated quite a bit within the last couple of years with our students being safe in their schools. I grew up with, you know, I'm a hunting family. I definitely feel that this can be a way to protect our children, but it's so many different things that go into this program that is definitely something we need to discuss before we put it into our schools. I agree with Mr. Cheddar as they're really trying hard to make our schools safe so that people can't get in, you know, with the security. I mean, if you go in now, you have to have your driver's license to be able to go into a classroom, and that's something that just started this year, which I think is a great thing. Although it's hard because I don't always have my driver's license on me when I go to the school. But I really feel that this is something that can be discussed based on, you know, how safe we feel our kids are right now and how to keep them safe, you know, like our shelter in places and the training that we do. But I know that the Sentinel in place if that's what they want teachers to be the ones that are doing this, or, a lot of them don't feel comfortable with that. And so that would have to be something we would have to discuss with the teachers and with the principals and everybody who's in charge of the schools to decide what is the best thing for our children and for everybody involved. So I appreciate the question, and it requires a lot of thought as we go through the next couple of years and, keeping our kids safe. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dahl.
Sentinel program, that's a very important and a very serious question. I may think outside the box on this one. I think it's cause and effect. We're seeing a dangerous trend in not only schools but society. Being prior military myself, I can see a trend in the past 10, 15 years of weapons becoming the solution for a lot of the disgruntled problems in schools and in communities. We're very, very fortunate in Brookings and Brookings County that we don't see the problems and the numbers that other larger cities and towns and school districts have. With that question, I think we get tunnel vision. And as a parent of four, where are the parents on these children that are having problems, that feel that the solution is to take it out at school? I think there's more going on at home that we realize, and we may need to start there. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will start with Mr. Cheddar, and the question is, and this was a text question, what is one thing you would do to improve the school district? What is one thing you would do to improve the school district? Mr. Cheddar.
This is a very critical question because the board faces this all the time. And I believe the most critical thing we can do is to get our financial plan in order. And this then affects all of our planning, all of our program, and all of our support system. And in my past 2 years, I've worked hard in terms of trying to change the trajectory of our financial situation in our Brookings School District. Our $20 million of local resources that we provide into the school system has to be deployed in a way that is supported by the community. And so my answer would be that the most important thing we can do right now to improve the school system is to gain confidence among our electorate, gain confidence among our teachers, get confidence among all those patrons of the school system that our financial house is in order. And I believe we're getting there and can continue to improve on that.
Thank you. We'll now go to Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for that question, as I feel that I agree with Mr. Cheddar, and this is that we really need to make sure that our fiscal responsibility and our finances within the school are up to par. We have so many things that we want to do within the school district, as we've had questions come to us already about, updating our schools and building new schools and all those things. And without a balanced budget, we are not able to do those things and add to it if we need to. So that would be something that definitely we could work on as a school district. There's so many things we are such a growing community right now. We grow so much here, and we have so many kids within our school district, and that's definitely something that we need to be aware of and be diligent. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move on to Mr. Dahl, and I will repeat the question. What is the one thing you would do to improve the school district?
One thing I would do to improve the school district, what I do like I have seen, and the question has not come up yet, is academics versus athletics. Athletics, very important for a school. I see athletics as being important for team building and physical fitness. Apart from that, more of a balance toward the academics side of it. We have the potential to graduate students that can go on to any field whatsoever. Focusing entirely on four-year school, not necessarily. Let's focus on trades. Let's focus on items that are needed in the community. So we have a chance to keep those students in our area once they do graduate. Too many of them we've let go to larger cities. We've lost many of our graduates to Sioux Falls. We lost many of our graduates to other states. Let's let them know that there are opportunities here, and whether that's taken on the role by the parent, by the administration, by even homeroom teachers. Let's give them a sense of belonging to the community and do our utmost to keep them here.
Thank you. And now we'll have Ms. Birondo answer the question.
The thing I think we should focus on, and this is coming up again, is the school board will be reworking their vision plan in the next couple years. And I just want to, what I would want us to look at is e pluribus unum, out of many, one. The diversity of Brookings is growing every single year, and I don't feel that our school district is even admitting that to a certain degree. I also believe that the neurodiversity of our school, that some of these issues that we're talking with Alternative High is actually issues with students who have not been, who probably have underlying ADHD and have not been diagnosed or worked with. And so I feel that all of this can be summed up by e pluribus unum, out of many one, where we bring back a vision of civics, of citizenship, and of being good relatives. Again, everything we've kind of talked about up here can go back to really helping students not just prepare for a career, which is so crucial and important because humans define themselves by their work, but also by the relationships we build and the solid liberal arts education that gives them a sense of the global humanity, as well as the smaller pieces of diversity. We have over 19-20 languages spoken in our school district. We need to be partnering with parents to make sure that all of those students feel that the larger Brookings community recognizes their diversity as both unique as well as something that is a strength for Brookings, which I believe absolutely it is. If we want global learners, we need to also understand that technology is not divorced or separate from the liberal arts, excuse me, and that neither are the trades. I feel that we are overly tracking our students in that way, and we're overly labeling our students when we really should be bringing them back to a better civic education, a better, stronger liberal arts education, and allowing them to express themselves in other arts, sports, and trades. But again, revisioning as e pluribus unum. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and last question, and we're going to do this kind of a little bit of a lightning round. We've got 1 minute to answer this question, but it's a pretty straightforward question. And that is, what is one thing you feel you could bring as a school board member that sets you above the others? And we'll start with Ms. Johnson with this question. And if you can, 1 minute, please, 1 minute.
Thank you for this question. I really feel that I am speaking for the school board, and the things that sets me apart is I have a lot of experience with working with kids, being a coach and things like that within the community. And I also have a child who has a disability within the school district, and it's interesting to me to see how they help her and help other students like her. And I really feel that I could bring some information to the school district about that, or to school board about that. So I appreciate the question, and thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dahl.
One thing that would set me apart from the other candidates, my extensive knowledge in construction and background in building trades, with also myself being, I was once officer in charge of my military unit, being able to balance that with what cost and value difference is in the school district. The troubles that were presented at the Mickelson Middle School expansion project apparently caught most of the school board and school district off guard. I was needing to stop by as part of my state duties to stop at these construction sites many times, and I was not caught off guard by that. I could see the progress of construction and could see that they were not going to make their deadline.
Thank you. And the question is, what is the one thing you feel you could bring as a school board member that sets you above the others? Ms. Birondo.
Well, again, I don't think I want to talk about who's above one another, but definitely set apart is that the Brookings School Board as a whole acts as a whole. However, diversity on that school board is really, really important. As a tribal member, as a woman, I believe that I would add a very crucial voice to the communal decision-making that the school board does. I believe that also as a journalist, I'm fantastic at asking questions. And so I think that would be also a very strong part. And I also am concerned that sometimes we get bogged down in some of the day-to-day business and forget the humanity on the other side. So as a mother, that the policies I have affected us very specifically. And so I feel that that is also very important. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cheddar.
I believe that my experience over the years, I'm able to offer a global view of what the school system is all about. I have proven leadership in various areas. Right now, I believe our challenges lie in some of our facilities, and we're going to do something about it. It's a matter of what path we take. And so that would to lead me to my point again, that the financial expertise that I'm able to bring to the board has already been evidenced by policies and drafts and best practices that we're deploying and using right now after my 2 years of service on the board, and I intend to continue that and provide expertise and to the system. But again, all of our staff, all of our administrators, and the board are all leaders in a way, and we need to capitalize on that. We need to ask the questions that allow people to lead, be leaders, and show that leadership in a way that is effective for the school system. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I'm sorry to say we didn't get to all the questions. I was very excited how many questions we got. We got more questions for school board than we did for city council. So I think that's really positive. Now we'll have 1 minute for closing comments, and we'll start with Mr. Dahl.
Thank you for this opportunity. I do stress that everybody, no matter what by means they can, please vote this spring, whenever this is going to be, April 14th, or move back a couple months. But please keep in mind to absentee vote if you can't go out, or please visit your polling places. And this is the way democracy works. You're able to voice your own opinion and get the candidate in you want. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, everyone, for being here at our virtual thing that we're doing here. And I, again, just stress, again, go out and vote. It's your duty. Make sure that you do it however means necessary to keep yourself safe, keep your family safe, whatever that entails. And, thank you for listening to us and to giving us great questions here, as this is something that everybody within the community is interested in, and keeping our children educated and is only something that, we can do as a board and as a community, is to make sure that they have the best education. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cheddar.
I want to thank those of you who have come up to me before we were in this current situation in the community and expressed your appreciation for my candidacy. I want the constituency, the taxpayers, the voters of Brookings to know that I believe in numbers. I believe in data. Data, if we have the data, we can make the correct decisions. And I'm here to express my candidacy, and that I'll listen to the constituency and the patrons, as well as those who work for the school district, and try to make it better every day. Thank you.
Ms. Birondo.
Thank you. I would just encourage you to vote whenever you can. Mail-in is a great option, and thank you for this opportunity. I also wanted to pick up on something that Kyle said, and I think it's a military thing because I learned it from my older brother, who's a retired Marine and Air Force. is we should not just criticize, but we should also participate. That's what makes democracy democracy. And last spring, when I walked up and returned my son's eagle feather to his cap, the main thing in my mind wasn't as an angry mother, it was more so, we aren't breaking state law today, is what was going through my mind. And so I think we need a voice of courage, diversity, and integrity in the school board. I think we have already had great leaders that have showed us some really excellent work on the school board. We love the Brookings School District. And so I just want to encourage you, whether it's voting or when we came into the school board meetings, or as a journalist when I've covered school board meetings and city council meetings, there's very little public involvement. So I would just encourage you to not just criticize, but also participate. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of the candidates. We have 4 candidates running for 1 spot. And I think that's terrific to have this participation. And I was very excited about the number of questions we got, more for school board than city council, which I think says a lot about this community and what they believe in with educating our children. I've sat here and moderated several of these, and I've also been in your seats moderating these. And it's tough not to have an audience here to speak to. And plus, at the end, usually clap for them, because just to recognize the good work you've done. So you got a few of us in here at least, so we're going to clap for you to say thank you for being candidates. Yeah. And now I'll turn it over to our chamber executive, Kelsey Doom.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Thank the candidates for coming. I know it's a little bit difficult to participate, but I'm glad that we got to do this. So absentee voting is available if you need to make a copy of your driver's license. Hy-Vee is offering free copies of driver's licenses. For more information, just give the city a call or go to their website. I think that's all the announcements we have. This is brought to you by Clorox. We've been wiping everything down, so we're pretty excited about it. Thank you guys all for participating, and we'll see you soon.